With each of Demas's prostrations, grace overshadowed him so profusely that it radiated out even over me. It was then that the richness of grace was released over me also. Certainly, the grace existed before with the love I had for my elder, but it was then that I sensed the grace with exceptional intensity. Let me tell you how it happened. One morning at about 3:30, I went to church, to the Holy Trinity Church, for the service. It was still early. The Simantron had not yet been sounded. No one was in the church. I sat in the narthex beneath a stairway. I was hidden from sight and was praying. All of a sudden, the church door opened, and in walked a tall, elderly monk. It was old Demas. As soon as he entered, he looked around and saw no one. So then, holding a large prayer rope, he started to make rhythmic prostrations, rapid and numerous, and at the same time, he repeated continually, "Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on me. Most Holy Theotokos, save us." After a short time, he fell into ecstasy. I simply cannot find words to describe to you his behavior before God. Motions of love and worship, motions of divine craving, of divine love and devotion. I saw him standing, opening out his arms in the form of a cross, like Moses at the Red Sea, and he made a sound. Oh, what was that? He was bathed in grace. He shone in the light. That was it. Immediately, his prayer was communicated to me. Immediately, I entered into the atmosphere surrounding him. He hadn't seen me. Listen, I was deeply moved, and I started to shed tears. The grace of God came upon my pitiful and worthless self. How can I describe it for you? He transmitted the grace of God to me. The grace that saint possessed radiated into my soul also. He transmitted to me his spiritual gifts of grace. So old Demas had fallen into ecstasy. It happened without his willing it. He couldn't control his experience. That's not right either, what I'm saying. I can't express it. It is seizure by God, divine catalepsy. These things cannot be explained. They can't be explained at all. And if you explain them, you fall very wide of the mark. No, they cannot be explained, nor can they be rendered in books, nor can they be made comprehensible. You must be worthy to understand them. At 4:00 in the morning, the bells rang. As soon as he heard the bells, old Demas made a few more prostrations and stopped praying. He sat on the low stone, and in came Makarudas. That was their affectionate name for Macarius. He was nimble and soft-spoken. He was a little angel. How well he lit the oil lamps, how well he lit the chandelier, and how well he snuffed out the lights again, one by one. How well he made his prostrations as they asked forgiveness right and left to take the service books in order to intone the words for the singers. How I loved him. He deserved to be loved because he had the grace of God. So Macarius entered into the main church. Old Demas followed him, opened the door, and entered also. He stood and arranged himself in his stall, thinking that no one had seen him. I, too, concealed by the shadow of the stairway, stealthily and gingerly entered the main church. I went and venerated the icon of the Holy Trinity and returned and stood to one side. At the summons, with the fear of God, many of the fathers received communion. I too made a prostration and received communion. From the moment that I received communion, I was overcome by an intense joy and enthusiasm. After the service, I went out into the forest alone, full of joy and exultation. Madness! As I walked towards the hermitage, I silently repeated the prayer of thanksgiving. I ran through the forest passionately, jumping for joy and stretching my arms out wide in enthusiasm, and I shouted aloud, "Glory to you, O God! Glory to you, O God!" Yes, my arms remained stretched out, rigid like a piece of wood, and my body formed the shape of a cross. If you had seen me from behind, you would have seen a cross. My head was lifted up to the sky, and my chest was expanded along with my outstretched arms, ready to take off for the heavens. My heart wanted to fly, but what I'm telling you is true. I experienced it. How long I remained in this state, I don't know. When I came to, I lowered my arms and I walked on silently with tears still in my eyes. I arrived at the hermitage. I didn't eat anything, as I usually did. I couldn't speak. I went to the chapel, but I didn't sing anything. None of the hymns of contrition that I usually sang. No, I sang nothing. I sat in my stall and repeated the prayer. I continued in that state, but somewhat more calmly. Emotion was choking me. I dissolved in tears. They poured effortlessly from my eyes on their own. I didn't want them, but it was emotion at the visitation of God. The tears did not stop until the evening. I couldn't sing or think or speak, and if anyone else had been there, I wouldn't have spoken. I would have gone away to be on my own. One thing is certain, old Demas transmitted to me the charisma of prayer and of clear sight at the time when he himself was praying in the narthex of the Holy Trinity Church. What happened to me was something I had never thought of, neither had I ever desired nor expected it. My elders had never spoken to me of these gifts of grace. That was their way. They didn't teach me with words, only with their way of life. When I read the lives of the saints and ascetics, I saw the gifts that God gave them. Believe me, I never thought that I would receive some charisma from God myself. It never crossed my mind. And that which I had never thought of appeared suddenly, and I never gave any importance to it. In the evening of the same day, I went out of the church and sat on the low wall looking out to sea. It was approaching the time when my elders usually returned. When I was looking to see if they were coming, I saw them suddenly appear. I saw them descending some marble steps. But that place with the marble steps was far away, and I shouldn't normally have been able to see it. I saw them by the grace of God. I was filled with enthusiasm. It was the first time this had happened to me. I jumped up and I ran to meet them. I took their haversacks. "How did you know we were coming?" asked the elder. I didn't reply, but when we arrived at the hermitage, I approached the Father Confessor, Father Pantaleimon, and secretly, out of the hearing of Father Ioannicius, I said to him, "I don't know how to explain this to you, but when you were on the other side of the hill, I saw you loaded with your haversacks, and I ran to meet you. The hill was like a pane of glass, and I saw you on the other side." All right, said the elder. "Don't give any importance to these things, and don't tell anyone, because the evil one is watching." The gift of clear sight, as I have told you, was something I had never desired, nor when I received it did I attempt to increase it or cultivate it. I gave no importance to it. Neither have I ever asked, nor do I ask God to reveal something to me, because I believe that is counter to his will. But after the experience with old Demas, I changed completely. My life became all joy and exaltation. I lived among the stars in infinity, in heaven. I wasn't like that previously. From the moment I experienced the grace of God, all the gifts were multiplied. I became sharp-witted. I learned the Trinitarian canons, the canon of Jesus, and other canons. Simply on their being read and sung in the church, I learned them by heart. I recited the entire Psalter by heart. I took care with some psalms that have similar words so that I didn't mix them up. I generally changed. I saw lots of things, but I didn't speak. That is, I wasn't given the right to say anything. I wasn't informed to speak. I saw everything. I registered everything. I seemed to know everything. From my joy, I no longer walked on the earth. My sense of smell was opened, and I smelled everything. My eyes were opened, and my ears were opened. I recognized things from far away. I distinguished the animals and the birds. From the sound of the call, I knew if it was a blackbird or a sparrow, a finch or a nightingale, a robin or a thrush. I recognized all the birds by their song. At night and at dawn, I delighted in the chorus of nightingales and blackbirds, all of them. I became a new, a different person. I turned everything I saw into prayer. I referred to it myself. Why does the blackbird sing and glorify its maker? I wanted to do the same. The same with the flowers. I recognized the flowers by their fragrances, and I smelled them when I was half an hour away. I observed the grasses, the trees, the water, the rocks. I spoke with the rocks. The rocks had seen so much, and I was filled with emotion and contrition. I saw everything with the grace of God. I saw, but I didn't speak. I often went to the forest. I was greatly enthused by walking amidst the stones and the rushes, the thickets and the tall trees. One morning, I was walking along in the virgin forest. Everything freshened by the morning dew was shining in the sunlight. I found myself in a gorge. I walked through it and sat on a rock. Cold water was running peacefully beside me, and I was saying the prayer. Complete peace. Nothing could be heard. After a little while, the silence was broken by a sweet, intoxicating voice, singing and praising the Creator. I looked. I couldn't discern anything. Eventually, on a branch opposite me, I saw a tiny bird. It was a nightingale. I listened as the nightingale trilled unstintingly, its throat puffed out to bursting in sustained song. The microscopic little bird was stretching back its wings in order to find power to emit those sweetest of tones, and puffing out its throat to produce that exquisite voice. If only I had a cup of water to give it to drink and quench its thirst. Tears came to my eyes, the same tears of grace that flowed so effortlessly and that I had acquired from old Demas. It was the second time I had experienced them. I cannot convey to you the things I felt, the things I experienced. I have, however, revealed to you the mystery, and I thought, why does this tiny nightingale produce these sounds? Why does it trill like that? Why is it singing that exquisite song? Why? Why is it bursting its throat? Why? For what reason? Is it waiting for someone to praise it? Certainly not. No one there will do that. So I philosophized to myself. This sensitivity I acquired after the experience with old Demas. Previously, I didn't have it. What did that nightingale not tell me? And how much did I say to it in silence? Little nightingale, who told you that I would pass by here? No one comes here. It's such an out-of-the-way place. How marvelously you unceasingly carry on your duty, your prayer to God. How much you tell me and how much you teach me, little nightingale. My God, how I am moved. With your warbling, dear nightingale, you show me how to hymn God. You teach me 1,000 things beyond number. My poor health does not allow me to narrate all this to you as I feel it. A whole book could be written about it. I loved the nightingale very much. I loved it and it inspired me. I thought, why it and not me? Why does it hide from the world and not me? And the thought entered into my mind that I must learn, I must love myself, I must cease to exist. I said to myself, why? Did it have an audience? Did it know I was there and could hear it? Who heard it as it was bursting its throat in song? Why did it go to such a hidden location? But what above of all these little nightingales in the middle of the thick forest, in the ravines, night and day, at sunset and sunrise? Who heard their throat-bursting song? Why did they go to such secret places? Why did they puff out their throats to bursting? The purpose was worship, to sing to their Creator, to worship God. That's how I explained it. I regarded all of them as angels of God, little birds that glorified God, the Creator of all, and no one heard them. Yes, believe me, they hid themselves so that no one would hear them. They weren't interested in being heard, but there in solitude and peace in the wilderness and silence, they longed to be heard. But by whom? None other than by the Maker of everything, the Creator of all, by Him who gave them life and breath and voice. You will ask, did they have consciousness? What am I to say? I don't know. If they did it consciously or not, I don't know. These, after all, are birds. It may be, as Scripture says, that today they live and tomorrow exists no more. We mustn't think differently from what Holy Scripture says. God may present to us all these were angels of God. We don't know about these things. At all events, they hid themselves so that no one would hear their doxology. It is also for the monks there on the mountain. Their life is unknown. You live with your elder and you love him. Prostrations and ascetic struggles are all part of daily life, but you don't remember them, nor does anyone ask about them. Who is he? You live Christ. You belong to Christ. You live with everything, and you live with God, in whom all things live and move, in whom and through whom you enter into the uncreated church and live there unknown. And although you devote yourself in prayer to your fellow men, you remain unknown to all men, and perhaps they will never know you. I got it into my head to leave, to ask my elder for his blessing and a sack of dry biscuit, and to disappear, to praise and glorify God unceasingly. But I thought, where will I go? I still haven't learned my handicraft properly. They still hadn't taught me. Perhaps they were afraid I would leave. That was a widespread fear on the holy mountain. They wouldn't teach novices how to complete their handicraft so that they wouldn't leave. Because for a monk to know a craft means freedom, since he can then have a way of buying his biscuit. So this idea got into my head, to leave for the desert, to be alone in the woods, alone with God, completely alone, selflessly, without pride, without egotism, without vanity, without, do you believe it? That's where my ideal of selflessness came from. A number of ascetics who disappeared into what we call the desert achieved this purity, this perfection. They sought neither the world nor anything at all. They dissolved in tears before God, and they prayed for the church. They all were concerned first for the world and the church, and after that for themselves. So, as I said, the aim of the nightingale became stuck in my head. What is his aim in bursting his throat in song in the wilderness? Worship, praise, and doxology directed to God the Creator. So why should I not go into the wilderness to worship God in silence, lost to the world and the society of men? Is there anything more perfect? All these ideas I had derived from the nightingale. I dreamt up such plans, how I would go into the wilderness, how I would live joyfully, how I would die. I would eat wild herbs, I would do this and that. I would go as an unknown ragged beggar to some monastery to ask for rusks of bread, and I would eat them without saying who I am and where I stay. I made up a whole scenario. It was my secret. I returned to my cell, filled with all these emotions and dreams. I confessed them to the elder. The elder smiled. Deception, he said. Get it out of your head. Don't even think of these things again, because such thoughts will put an end to your prayer. And as I have told you many times, whatever I confessed to the elder finished there and then, and I had a sudden feeling of joy. It was, it seems, the result of the elder's prayers. So I lived in obedience in the earthly paradise of the holy mountain. I never wanted to leave from there, but God's plan was different. It was a rainy day. When the rain stopped, we saw from the workshop where we were working many of the fathers from the other hermitages walking toward St. Nephan's to gather snails. Father Ioannikius saw the monks passing by and became agitated. He wanted me to go and look for snails too. I said to him, "My elder told me not to." I set out and he called me back. "But if you want me to go, I'll be obedient and go." "Go," he said. "There are lots of snails out today." So I grabbed a shoulder bag and I ran off. Or rather, to begin with, I didn't run so that my elders wouldn't see me. But once I got out of sight, I started running. I climbed up high on some sheer rocks where not even the wild boars went, because when it rains, the wild boars all get together and go off to eat the snails. I collected snails for 3 hours. I found a great many, and I filled the bag full. I was covered in sweat, and I was coming back down. I was caught in a freezing wind, however, that was blowing off Mount Athos down to the sea. The bag on my shoulder was soaking wet, and my whole back was frozen by the saliva from the snails. As I was making my way down over difficult terrain, I had to come down across a steep incline. When I was halfway down, that whole area started to give way, rushing like a river from the top of the mountain, carrying me down with stones and rocks. This river of stones was about 15 to 20 meters wide. My legs were buried up to my knees. I was stuck. With the sack still on my back and in danger of being killed, I shouted out, "My holy lady!" All at once, an invisible power threw me 20 meters across to the other side of the ravine to some large rocks that in turn were on the point of rolling down the hillside. At the same time, down below, the fathers who were returning from St. Nephan's with their snails happened to be passing. They saw the treacherous landslide and they shouted out, "Look out! Is there anyone up there?" I was now out of danger and hadn't suffered any ill. Only my clogs had remained stuck in the landslide, and my legs were cut and bruised. The fathers shouted up again, but I didn't shout back. I wanted to shout, but I couldn't. I was in a state of shock. I heard them, but I didn't reply. The bag, which remained unharmed on my back, would have weighed over 100 kilos. When I recovered, I started to scramble down. I encountered another danger. I saw a snake. I was terrified. God delivered me, however. I arrived back at the hermitage in a state of panic and collapsed. I told the elders all that had happened to me. I was in a state of shock. My elder was very distressed and imposed a punishment on Father Ioannikius, forbidding him to celebrate divine liturgy for many months. Father Ioannikius was also deeply distraught at what had happened. As a result of the cold I caught that day, I contracted pleurisy with a buildup of fluid and was in great pain. When I recovered a little, I felt great joy because I was able to pray. I started to sing the words of the little canon of supplication. From the countless multitude of my sins, both my soul and body are now weakened, and both are sick. When Father Ioannicius heard me, he came up to me and hugged me, kissed me on the forehead, and said, "Forgive me, my boy." The elder came and said to him fiercely, "You crooked fellow." I had no appetite, however. I didn't want to eat. I ate very little, and every day my condition worsened. It seemed I was going to waste away and die. The elders were afraid I might die, and so was Father Antonius, who was acting as doctor. The boy must leave. He won't come through. He needs medicines that we don't have here. He's not eating, and it's certain that the longer he stays here, the worse he'll get. Think that I ate a mouthful of ground almonds, and my stomach couldn't take them. Such was the extent to which I had weakened. My elders wanted me very much, but they found themselves obliged to send me out into the world, because on the mountain there was neither milk nor meat, and so they gave me permission to leave. They obtained the necessary papers for me to go back to my village for about 2 months until I would recover, and I left. Father Ioannicius took me to Daphne in a rowboat. At that time, we didn't have a motorboat at all. We didn't have either mules or motorboats then. Whatever the monks took up there, they carried on their backs. So we arrived in Daphne. I was unable to stand upright. They laid me down in a room where the post office was housed. After a short time, I started to have excruciating pains in the kidneys. I cried from the pain. Father Ioannicius wept too. For all my pain, I found strength to comfort him. "Don't cry, elder. I'll get better. There's nothing the matter." And he comforted me through his tears, saying, "Don't cry, my boy. You'll get better." The boat arrived, and they carried me on board. He kissed me on the forehead, and we parted in tears. I had never imagined that I would return to the world. I went back to my hometown. It is true that I had asked God to send me an illness, and he gave me an illness. But I said, "It's all very well, God, that you gave me the illness, but not that you may take me away from the holy mountain." But take me away he did. I left because of my illness, or rather they sent me away. God listened, and indeed, but not necessarily to my will. He gave me also something I didn't want, because, as I said, on account of my illness, I left the holy mountain. And so, after so many years, I went back to my home. I was in the boat for hours without end. Everything seemed strange. I hadn't seen children and women for years. I went to my village. I passed through and arrived to my very village. First, I went over and I found someone, my brother-in-law, and I asked him which families were in the village. He replied that a little way off was my father, and further down other families, and he mentioned their names. With my heart racing, I ran out to meet my father. I hadn't seen him for many years. I had been a child of maybe 12, 10. As I've told you, he'd been away in America for years. When I saw him, I recognized him at once. But how could he possibly recognize me, a monk with long hair and a great long beard? I felt embarrassed, and so I had hidden my hair and beard inside the cassock as best I could. Moreover, I was skin and bone as a result of my illness. I greeted him and said, "Who are you? Where are you from?" This is what he said to me. "I'm a monk," I replied. Then I asked, "Do you have any family? How many children do you have?" I had 4 children, but one of my sons disappeared years ago. We lost him. He was working in Porphyrios, and he disappeared. In Porphyrios, what was his name? Vangelis. Vangelis? He used to be a friend of mine. Tell me, do you know where he is? Alas, he died. He died? My father was heartbroken. He started to weep. I couldn't bear it. I had been made of steel. I would have melted. If I had been made of steel, I would have melted. I started to cry too. My heart was racing. I couldn't bear to see my father's heart so distressed, and I revealed myself to him. It's me, Father, Evangelos. Imagine what took place at that moment. Joy and tears mixed together. We embraced, and full of emotion, we set out for the house to find my mother. My mother, however, was unforgiving. When she saw me, she scolded me mercilessly. She regarded as a great affront that one of her children had become a monk and never made any attempt to get in touch with her.